Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Treasures of Public Health History series with the Plague Professor. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the outbreak of bubonic plague in San Francisco in 1900. Why? Well, because there are a lot of parallels between the response to that outbreak of plague in San Francisco and the current administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic. So first of all, bubonic plague, it's not the same thing as coronavirus. Bubonic plague is a bacterial infection. It's highly infectious and historically has had a very high mortality rate. But more on that another day, because bubonic plague deserves more than one episode in this series. So I promise I'll come back to it. So at any rate, a wave of bubonic plague hit the city of San Francisco in 1900. And it sort of fused with the prevailing anti-Asian sentiment in the state at the time and unleashed this sort of torrent of discrimination and sort of arbitrary blaming for the disease on the city's Chinese population. So what happened was, in March of 1900, an autopsy was done of a recently deceased man of Chinese origin, and it was determined that he had the plague bacteria in his body. And so at that point in time, the appropriate public health response would have been to issue sort of uniform citywide or even statewide public health ordinances to slow the spread of the disease, to flatten the curve, as we say in this age of social distancing. However, because the state's governor and the city's government thought that it would be really damaging to California's economy to acknowledge an outbreak of plague, they chose to deny it and instead fed into prevailing anti-Asian sentiment and targeted Chinatown and San Francisco's Chinese community by imposing a highly restrictive, highly discriminatory, and highly arbitrary quarantine on the Chinatown district without informing any of Chinatown's residents. And so they basically put barbed wire up, which kind of reinforced in the popular mind that sort of anti-Asian discrimination and associating them with disease and pollution. And so they also sort of alongside this quarantine, the state also adopted other highly discriminatory practices. So, for example, anyone of Chinese or Japanese origin, so it wasn't even just anti-Chinese, it was sort of a more widespread anti-Asian sentiment. Japanese and Chinese Americans were not allowed to leave the city of San Francisco without health cards demonstrating that they had permission to leave the city. This was not a requirement of their white counterparts. So this was specific to the city's Asian community. And so I think that sort of shows a very dangerous precedent when we tie viruses to a particular identity or national origin. So I think it's a real important cautionary tale for how we think about coronavirus. And it doesn't do us any good to, basically blame it on China or associate with China. Again, viruses do not have national identities. So that's it for today. I'm going to show you a couple of slides associated with the 1900 bubonic plague outbreak in San Francisco. And tomorrow I think I'll carry on with more on the bubonic plague. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. So this is kind of what Chinatown looked like in San Francisco in 1900 under quarantine. A lot of the anti-Asian sentiment at the time of the plague in San Francisco was fueled by the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 that sought to prevent Chinese immigration. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. More on the plague to come. See you next time.